UFC 317 is this week. I'm going to give you a full card prediction and breakdown of all 12 fights on this card, starting with Niko Price versus Jacobe Smith. I am going to go with Jacobe Smith in this fight. I watched his last fight, and the one thing I will say about Jacobe Smith, and he is hittable, especially in certain points, like he's way too hittable for a guy like Preston Parsons, but he was able to find a shot and KO him in that fight. But he knows he has a really good chin, and he really doesn't care. He knows he's going to take your shot to give out his best shot. So I will say he didn't get hit too cleanly by Preston Parsons in that fight, but he just has so much power in his hands. Niko Price got put out by Robbie Lawler, who's pretty much already retired at that point. That was his retirement fight. Beat Alex Morono and then lost to Demba Gorimbo. I don't mind a Jacobe Smith KO here. The one thing I will be worried about is maybe he tires himself out early on, because he did look a little bit tired once he got into more physical exchanges against Preston Parsons. Maybe I'm overthinking that a little bit more, because it really was like almost like a 2-minute fight, but he was kind of like breathing. I don't want to say super hard at certain moments, but you could tell he's trying to control his breathing at certain points. But Niko Price, 35 years of age, definitely a lot older than he was when he was actually having wars and putting on crazy fights. I just don't think he's going to be able to take as much damage as a Jacobe Smith can. And for a guy like Smith that can pretty much takes a shot to give one out, it's not really a good fight for a Niko Price to have here. So I'm going to go with Jacobe Smith by KO here. I'm going to say second round KO. Jacobe Smith kind of just finding his range a little bit more coming into that second round. Maybe a late first round KO in this one, but I think it will be a little bit of a waiting period. Maybe Niko Price will land a couple good shots early on, but I think Jacobe Smith can find his way and land a nice KO over Niko Price. So let's move on. We have Jhonata Diniz versus Alvin Hines. I'm going to go with Diniz in this fight. You do kind of have to worry about his wrestling in this one, because he did get out wrestled by Marcin Tybura. Hurt him pretty badly early on and whooped him up on the ground, but then Tybura was able to just reverse position after he did get ground and pounded for a certain amount of time. But yeah, he's not very good on the ground. Like his his grappling IQ is not very good. I will say Alvin Hines does have some decent wrestling. He does change levels pretty good, especially for a heavyweight. He's very stocky. He's 6'2", and he is built pretty wide, especially for the heavyweight division. I just don't think his grappling is too great. For Alvin Hines here, he's really slow on the feet, and I just think Jhonata Diniz is just super long, 79.5 inches of reach, will have a lot of power in his hands. He did look, again, very green in that last fight. He gave up his hips pretty easily, especially in that, I think it was the second round, maybe, after he got up. He gave up his hips pretty easily and got taken down, but he was doing really well on the feet against Marcin Tybura. Again, has really nice KO power in his hands. Alvin Hines, I don't really trust him too much. 33 years of age coming into the UFC here at a 5-inch reach disadvantage in this one. It doesn't have super good grappling like a Marcin Tybura, who's already like a super big guy. This guy's kind of, it's weird to say stocky because he's 6'2", and he's in the heavyweight division. He's 260, but you can kind of see what I'm saying. Like he's not like a super tall. He's not Jhonata Diniz, who's 6'4" and is decently built at 250. He's 260, 6'2", and very stocky and has a lot of muscle on him. But he doesn't have good grappling like a Marcin Tybura, to where I think he can hold down Jhonata Diniz for the entire fight. I think Diniz is going to be able to find a shot here and land a KO at the end of the first round here. So in all honesty, just looking at this entire card, this card should be card of the year. From what I'm seeing, I think we should get a lot of KOs, a lot of fun fights, if not like really nice scraps. So I'm really looking forward to this card. But anyways, let's move up. The next fight, we have Sedriques Dumas versus Jackson McVey. Interestingly enough, Sedriques Dumas is back in the UFC. I don't know exactly what happened with his last arrest, because I believe he got arrested, I would want to say like a couple months ago, when I thought he got released from the UFC, but I guess he didn't. So I don't know what exactly is going on with that. But Jackson McVey, I watched his last fight, which was, it's going to be, 2 weeks ago from when this fight happens. He's very technical on the feet. He's very long as well. 77 inches of reach. Will actually be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage in this one. Still a little green, but he does a really good job in the clinch. And what you'll see, especially DC say, and Sedriques Dumas' last couple fights, and you saw Ruzabayev kind of take advantage of it, albeit by like grabbing his hair and keeping him in the clinch. And Sedriques Dumas does do a good job at kind of getting out of the clinch. But McVey is really good in the clinch. Finished his last fight against Mateo Garner pretty much in the clinch, just kneeing him to the body and kind of breaking him up against the fence. The one thing we saw with Dumas in his last fight against Makala Oseichik is he was on his back foot quite a bit, and he was just the nail the entire time of that fight. Like he couldn't get anything off. I think Jackson McVey, a decent like pressure fighter. He's going to pick his shots a little bit more, but he's very technical. Has, I think, decent enough wrestling. I haven't seen too much of it. I'm gonna be honest. He's only had 6 pro fights. He's 6-0. Again, still very green. I think he can hang in there on the feet with Sedriques Dumas, who does have a little bit more power, but I think McVey is just gonna be a lot smarter on the feet. He's gonna be able to use some of the clinch work, especially up against the fence. I think he's gonna be able to track him down as maybe Dumas tries to circle out and move around a little bit and try and find a shot. But I think McVey can trap him up against the fence, kind of use his knees like he did against that in his last fight against Mateo Garner, and kind of breaks Sedriques Dumas in this little one, who does duck quite a bit. So I just think McVey has a lot of tools on the feet. Again, a little green, but I think he has so many more tools than Dumas on the feet. And Dumas does have some decent power, but I think McVey's just going to use a little bit more of his fight IQ to win this one. So I'm going to go McVey. I don't know. This one's a little bit tricky because when you look at him, he's like, okay, this is like a decision guy. I'm going to say second round, late first, second round TKO for McVey here. I'm just going to say knee to the body, kind of just ground and pound shots on Dumas here. So let's move on. We have Terrance McKinney versus Viacheslav Borshchev. Oof. This fight in my brain, or at least for other people, is probably super easy because McKinney, he has really good wrestling. He's good power on his hands. He's decent on the feet. Even though we've seen like more technical strikers kind of put out like a highlight reel KO on him, weirdly enough, like Ribovich, Sadikov, he just submitted him, but Bonfim, highlight reel KO. I'm thinking of someone else here. Drew Dober got a decent KO there, but it wasn't really the highlight reel KO I'm thinking of. Where the hell is this fight at? It was on the Contender Series. Sean Woodson, yeah. I think you like need him and put him out as well. Brutal KO. That's the one thing I will say with Terrance McKinney is that a very technical striker. I mean, they're just gonna outclass him in every way on the feet. And what does worry me here, a lot of people talk about how good Terrance McKinney's wrestling is. I looked at the stats page because I wasn't gonna watch every single one of these fights to count him or anything, but the only fight where he scored a takedown and won was against Eric Gonzalez, and he's not very good. It was against Eric Gonzalez, and he won that fight. All these other ones, he shot takedowns and lost, weirdly enough. So I don't know what that really means here, because a lot of people are saying he's going to out-wrestle Borshchev, which does make sense. McKinney's wrestling is pretty good, and he does have some decent grappling as well. And that's pretty much Borshchev's glaring weakness in all his fights, that he can't really wrestle. He's bad grappling. But I will say there is going to be a pretty big opportunity on the feet if McKinney takes way too long to shoot for a takedown, to where I think Borshchev can potentially get a highlight reel KO. So I do like McKinney here. If he's smart and he wrestles, I think he can get this one done. There has always been questions about his cardio and things like that. So I am a little bit worried about this pick. I am going to go with Terrance McKinney. It's a very safe pick. I was actually thinking about going with Borshchev for this one, but I think I'm going to settle with McKinney here. If he's smart and he wrestles, he should be fine on the ground here. But I don't know if I trust him to do that. I feel like I can see Borshchev kind of getting the upset here and getting the KO. So I'm going to go with McKinney. If you're a betting person, all of McKinney's fights have not gone to the third round at all, so it is ending in the second round or less. If you can get a nice round prop on this fight, maybe under 1.5, or maybe even over, because I guess if McKinney does wrestle, it's going to be to a decision. I don't think he might not even submit. I mean, Chase Hooper got the Darce, but I think Chase Hooper's submission game is a lot better than Terrance McKinney. So, I don't know. This is a trickier one. I don't feel comfortable taking either one of these guys as a money line, but if you feel comfortable with a prop on rounds, I think that's a pretty good bet here. So let's move on. We have Viviane Araujo versus Tracy Cortez. I am going to go with Tracy Cortez. She can wrestle. She did get kind of whooped up on the feet by Rose Namajunas, but she does have some decent boxing as well. That Jasmine Jasudavicius fight is aging pretty good in hindsight, because she's on a little bit of a run herself, and she kind of whooped up Jasmine Jasudavicius, and her boxing looked a lot better when she came back, but she did not look very good against Rose Namajunas in her last fight. Viviane Araujo beat Karine Silva, looked pretty solid in that, had nice hands. I will say Tracy Cortez just has really good wrestling. I think she has decent boxing on the feet as well. I don't think she gets a KO or anything in this one, but I think she just outpoints Araujo in this fight. I'm going to say 2-1, 29-28 decision for Tracy Cortez in this one. So let's move on. We have Hyder and Amil versus Jose Delgado. Another very interesting fight. I feel like this is kind of 50-50 as well. I will say, coming into this fight, I watched their last fights. Hyder and Amil, when he fought against William Gomez, you can almost kind of like, weirdly enough, track down between that fight and the Connor Matthews fight, where Connor Matthews was able to push Jose Delgado up against the fence. I think he even got like 2 takedowns against him, if I looked at the stats correctly. I counted them. He took him down 2 times, and I think Jose Delgado was able to land like some weird spinning attacks and kind of change the momentum of the fight. And you can say the same thing kind of happened with William Gomez in the first round, where it kind of changed the momentum of that round and was able to get the upper hand on him. But the one thing with Hyder and Amil is he has a really good chin, a really good pressure fighter. He can take all the damage in the world, and he's just going to keep running at you. He's 35, so he is getting up there in age, and you do kind of worry about the amount of damage he is taking and how much he's going to be able to sustain for a while now. But Jose Delgado can crack. I will say there were certain moments where I was a little bit worried, where he was just a little too hittable, in my opinion. He does have some really nice hands, and he can crack himself, and he's 27 years of age, so he is going to keep getting better. I just get worried that with the guy like Hyder Amil, who's going to keep the pressure on. Maybe even make it a little bit dirty. Pretty much all his fights, he makes it dirty. Like, he's going to walk you down, push you up against the fence, and kind of look for a takedown and just make the fight super gritty. That's what Hyder Amil does. I do kind of worry about Jose Delgado in this one. I will say Delgado is good off his back foot. From what I noticed in that Conor Matthews fight, he did a good job off his back foot landing shots, but Hyder Amil is just not going to stop going forward. And a guy as young as Jose Delgado, I don't know if he's ready to kind of deal with the pressure of Hyder Amil in this one. So I am going to go with Hyder Amil here. I'm going to say by decision. This is going to be a pretty big fight for Jose Delgado because he is a prospect at the end of the day, and he is 27. If he can get like a KO here or win a decision, I think it's going to mean quite a bit. But I just feel like he's a little bit too green for a guy like Hyder Amil, who's just going to try and walk him down, and he's going to take all his shots. And I feel like he's going to gas Jose Delgado out a little bit, just kind of running away from him. Just kind of create some space, and I don't think he's going to be able to do that. So I'm going to go Hyder Amil here by decision, maybe 29-28. Let's move on. We have Jack Hermansson versus Gregory Rodrigues. Again, another tricky fight because Jack Hermansson isn't super active. He's gone, a year between fights for the last few years of his career. But he's 37 now, so you don't really know like what he'll actually look like. It is middleweight, like Brunson. Like I always mention it, Brunson of all people went on a little bit of a run at middleweight, weirdly enough. So anyone can do it. Gregory Rodrigues, though, really probably looks older than Jack Hermansson, and he's 5 years or 4 years younger than him. Gregory Rodrigues does have some good hands, does have some good wrestling. I don't know if he's going to be able to control Jack Hermansson on the ground. If you remember, like at Hamzat's peak hype, there was like always these clips of him and a Jack Hermansson kind of having grappling matches all the time in Sweden. I don't even think Hamzat goes to Sweden or anything like that anymore, but there used to be so many clips of them grappling and things like that happening. Jack Hermansson's grappling, I think, is decent enough to kind of hang in there with Gregory Rodrigues. I don't know if Gregory Rodrigues is going to be able to control him there at all, but on the feet, Jack Hermansson is just super tricky to deal with. But I will say in the Joe Pyfer fight, Pyfer was doing really good early on until he kind of tired out a little bit and his shots were not landing as clean as they were in the first couple rounds. This is only 3 rounds, so I don't know if he's going to be able to tire out Gregory Rodrigues like he did against Joe Pyfer, where Hermansson was able to kind of just be super tricky defensively, and Pyfer was missing a lot of shots, and I do think Pyfer's a little faster than Rodrigues. He was able to miss a lot of shots, and I think that probably was a pretty solid reason as why he got tired out. And same thing with like Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis was having a hard time tracking him down as well. I think Gregory Rodrigues, he does a good job in the clinch. I think he can kind of like outpoint him in those areas. Hermansson's getting a little bit older. I feel like Rodrigues can kind of dirty this fight up a little bit if he needs to. Make it in close contact, grab him a little bit, and kind of maybe point him up against the fence and win that way. I feel like he's not going to be trying to chase down Jack Hermansson this entire fight. Maybe I'm completely wrong here. Maybe he takes the first round and he's just chasing Jack Hermansson like everyone else kind of does. At least the Chris Curtis fight and the Joe Pyfer fight, where they just kind of struggled after the first round, and they're having a hard time keeping up with Hermansson because he's just moving out of the way all the time. It's just being super tricky with his movement. But I am going to go Rodrigues here. I think he can outpoint Hermansson in this fight. I just worry Hermansson's just a little bit too old, and I feel like the time that he has off is no longer going to benefit him anymore. But I do think he's actually a pretty solid underdog on this card. I feel like the same way about a lot of these prelim fighters. So I'm expecting some good fights on this card. Nonetheless, but let's move on. We have Payton Talbott versus Felipe Lima. Really good fight here. Felipe Lima, he hasn't fought in a little bit. I guess it's been 6 months. I believe this is at 135. He's been fighting at 145 or like 155 in his last couple fights, but he's at 135 now. He was the Octagon champion. He did have some really nice fights there. He's 27 years of age. Like, this dude is already super skilled. He has really good grappling, really nice hands, really good boxing. Does a really good job at kind of staying out of the way of shots. But he can be caught in moments, I will say. Payton Talbott, man. I always knew he had like a deficiency in his takedown defense, and we've seen him, if you've been watching Payton Talbott up until like the Contender Series or even like watch him as regional fights, like he would get taken down, but he would find his way back up. And I would always say, like, that's the one thing with Payton Talbott, like if he ever got controlled on the ground, he would be able to find his way back up even if he did get taken down. But we've seen him not really get taken down too much until that last fight against Raoni Barcelos, who's aging, who kind of came off of a couple contests where he did not look good at all and ended up just controlling Payton Talbott that entire fight. So I don't know where Payton Talbott is kind of at this point. We're having 2 high-level prospects fighting off against each other in this one. Again, a pretty big fight for both of these guys. We'll see who kind of jumps up a little bit, who the UFC is going to put all their marbles with, I guess, if you can say, who they're going to push after this fight. Because one thing I will say is Payton Talbott throws a lot in combinations, and he is pretty quick on the feet. And Felipe Lima can grapple, and I feel like that's going to be a little bit of the X factor here. If they say Payton Talbott, Felipe Lima can grapple, and I feel like that's going to be a little bit of the X factor here. Talbott showed a clear deficiency in his grappling game, and I feel like Lima can kind of take advantage of that, and he is very fast on the feet, and he does do a good job of staying out of shots. So I feel like Talbot could win this one for sure. Maybe if that last fight was just kind of, I don't even know how to even describe it. Like maybe that last fight he wasn't training as hard, or he was distracted or whatever, and he's kind of fixed it. Maybe he can come into this fight and look a lot better. But I just can't trust him after getting completely controlled by a guy like Hany Barcelos for 15 minutes in that fight. I can't really trust him. And this is a high level fight. This is a really good prospect he is fighting. So if he does win, hype train is probably going to be back on with Payton Talbot, especially if he does it in like a highlight reel fashion, because I feel like he could get a KO against Felipe Lima here. But I am going to go with Felipe Lima, just kind of landing some good strikes on the feet and kind of just using his grappling to get an advantage over Payton Talbot in this one, because it's just a clear deficiency at this point. He was looking pretty solid in that department for a little bit, but it's a very clear deficiency, and it was Hany Barcelos of all people. Hany Barcelos is good, but he's way too old to be doing that to a young prospect like Payton Talbot. So I am going to go with Felipe Lima by decision. Let's move on. We have Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano. And weirdly enough, with this fight, if you would have asked me maybe like 3 or 4 years ago who would win this fight, I would say Beneil Dariush 100%. But I just can't trust him. I feel like a lot of his confidence is gone, especially after the Charles fight, and especially after that Arman fight where he just got brutally KO'd in that one, both back-to-back, actually. But he got put out badly against Arman Tsarukyan. I just don't think he can take damage the same way as he used to. He did get KO'd a couple times, like randomly in earlier fights, but he was able to kind of go on a nice run. I think it's like an 8-fight run or whatever it was, on the cusp of kind of fighting for that championship, and then just ran into Charles Oliveira, got KO'd, and then got KO'd back-to-back against Arman Tsarukyan as well. Renato Moicano just losing to Islam Makhachev. I think he got dropped and then submitted or whatever it was. Was on a little bit of a run himself, weirdly enough, against really good fighters too. I mean, he completely destroyed Benoit Saint Denis, and I did not see that one coming. So Renato Moicano is good. I don't think he's that good on the feet either. And I will say this fight is going to be very interesting because Renato Moicano basically kind of just out-wrestled, out-controlled Benoit Saint Denis on the ground and kind of just elbowed him and cut him open. You can't really do that against Beneil Dariush. I think this fight is going to stay on the feet. And I will say Dariush does have some pretty good hands, especially. He does have a chance to potentially get an upset here. And the odds are actually pretty even. I don't mind people taking Dariush here because from what we've seen, he can crack a little bit and he can land good shots on Renato Moicano, because Renato Moicano, especially against I was watching like the Dover fights and all his last couple fights, he just looked a lot slower on the feet. He didn't seem that confident in the feet. I am going to go with Renato Moicano. You've seen him win. I mean, his last loss was against a champ in Islam Makhachev, and it was by sub. Beneil Dariush, I just can't trust him. I think his confidence is completely gone here. He has been off for a little bit, like a year and a half. I still don't think his chin is too great at this point. I think he's taken all the damage he can at this point in his career. I'm going to go with Renato Moicano. People are saying a decision. I actually don't mind a decision. I don't know if Renato Moicano can put him out, if I'm being honest. I will say if it does become a grappling fight, Renato Moicano is not going to be able to control Beneil Dariush on the ground. He's way too tricky, really good scrambles. Like, Mateusz Gamrot couldn't get him down on the ground, and Gamrot isn't really known to control guys on the ground. He does with some guys, like a Jalen Turner or whatever, but Beneil Dariush, I mean, just like an absolute masterclass against a high-paced wrestler in Mateusz Gamrot in that fight. So we know Dariush's grappling is pretty good, but Renato Moicano on the feet, I'm just going to take him to outpoint. Dariush maybe hurt him in moments. I don't think he KOs Dariush, I will say, in this fight. So I'm going to go decision, 30-27 decision for Renato Moicano on this one. Let's move on. We have Brandon Royval versus Joshua Van. Now, Joshua Van is coming into this fight with some pretty good hype on his name right now. 2 weeks ago, got a nice KO over Bruno Silva, looked really good in that fight, and he continues to get better. He's only 23 as well, which is really nice to see. To some of these prospects kind of rise up, especially at flyweight. Flyweight is kind of filling up with prospects, which I really do like to see. He is coming in on short notice here. I believe Brandon Royval was supposed to fight Manel Kape. Definitely a different matchup than a Manel Kape for what a Joshua Van is, who's a really good boxer and has really nice hands, and he's very dangerous on the feet. Brandon Royval, though, I will say, very rangy, very fast with his hands as well. The one fight that Joshua Van did lose in the UFC, was against, my mouse absolutely sucks, was against Charles Johnson, got KO'd. And the one thing with Charles Johnson is he's super rangy on the feet. I know it is just like a 3-inch reach disadvantage for him against Brandon Royval in this fight, but Charles Johnson had a massive reach in that fight and was kind of able to just land on Joshua Van, and Joshua Van couldn't really do too much. I will say that was a year ago, and Joshua Van super active. Like 5 fights in the last 11 months is super impressive, so props to him. But Brandon Royval continues to look really good. He got out-wrestled and out-grappled against Pantoja and got pretty much dominated in that fight. But then looked really good against Brandon Moreno, looked really good against Tatsuro Taira, who did bring the fight, and I will say he did improve his takedown defense, which I did really like to see out of that fight, and it does give me hope, at least for him, especially probably in the matchmaker's eyes as well, to maybe potentially give him a rematch if somehow Pantoja runs through this division again. I am going to go with Brandon Royval. I think he's too tricky on the feet, especially at range against a guy like Joshua Van, who's still pretty young. Again, does have some good boxing, so I think maybe he can hang in there and maybe take a round off of Brandon Royval in this fight. But I think the range is going to be the real difference maker here. They both have really good hands. But I am going to go Brandon Royval. He's been training for a high-level fight in Manel Cap. He's been fighting the high-level guys in this division. Joshua Van is kind of just now reaching that next level of competition in this division. So I think Joshua Van's going to look really good. I don't think he gets KO'd in this fight, but I think he's going to hang in there. I think he's going to impress some people for sure, if he has already. I think he's going to impress against a high-level competitor in Brandon Royval in this fight. So I'm going to go Brandon Royval here. Maybe 29-28 decision. I don't think either one of these guys KOs each other, but I'm going to go Royval by decision. Let's move on. We have Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Kara France. I'm going to go with Pantoja. I did do individual predictions for this fight and the main event coming up, so if you do want to check those out, you can go ahead and do that. I went super in-depth, I believe, with both of them as well, so go ahead and check those ones out if you want to see like a whole 12-15 minute prediction. But I'm going with Pantoja in this fight. The one thing with him is he is very, I don't want to say sloppy. He's maybe reckless on the feet is how I want to say, because he does have some good hands. He's very reckless. He does have really good grappling, really good wrestling. I feel like Kai Kara France, and I did mention that in the individual video I did make of it, against Amir Albazi, he should have won, but there are positions where I think Pantoja would take advantage of a Kai Kara France, just taking the back, and that's Pantoja's main tool is his grappling, especially with his back takes. He does a really good job hopping on guys' back and kind of forcing them in that position. And you can take a round off a guy using that position. You can submit him in the fight, and Pantoja has definitely done both of those. And I just think Kai Kara France is just going to be a little bit too reckless in his grappling defense. And even if Pantoja can't even get a takedown, he's going to keep coming forward. His hands have gotten better, at least technically speaking. He's always had nice power in his hands as well. But I think Pantoja's offensive grappling is getting better. I think he's just going to be able to find the back of Kai Kara France, even if Kai Kara France defends the takedowns. And Kai Kara France has always been kind of the guy where he's able to defend the takedowns and kind of take advantage of a low-level striking game of some of these grapplers that do come after him. I just think Pantoja, even if Kai Kara France defends a takedown, he's going to keep coming forward. Kai Kara France is going to eventually give up his back at certain moments, and I feel like Pantoja can take advantage of that. I don't know if Pantoja submits him in this fight. I feel like maybe Kai Kara France can take a round off of Pantoja at certain points in this fight. Maybe Pantoja gasses himself out a little bit in certain moments, just trying to go for takedowns and he can't get it. And Kai Kara France can crack for sure. He has really crazy striking. He's nice power in his hands. He's very fast as well. I just think Pantoja is just going to be able to track him down, be able to take him down in certain moments. And I feel like getting up from those takedowns, I feel like Kai Kara France will give up his back quite a bit. And I feel like Pantoja can take advantage of that in the grappling, win those positions at least, and bank rounds off of that. So I'm going to go with not Kai Kara France, Alexandre Pantoja, 49-46 decision. I don't think he submits Kai Kara France because I feel like his grappling is pretty good, or at least defensively speaking, not getting submitted, it's pretty solid. But Pantoja's offensive grappling is just too good for Kai Kara France in this fight. And I feel like he's going to be able to crack at certain moments on the feet as well. So let's move on to the main event. We have Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. Again, made another individual video for this one. I know I speak way too fast in that one. I get it. Please don't leave a comment if you do watch it. It's like a 12 to 15 minute video. I did a super breakdown on that one. Pretty much an official prediction. I did go with Ilia Topuria. I'm still going with Ilia Topuria. I do still feel like Charles Oliveira is too disrespected in this fight. And I feel like there are a lot of moments where Charles Oliveira could take advantage of an Ilia Topuria, especially early on, because I feel like Ilia Topuria is just super dangerous as the fight goes on. He picks his shots, makes a lot of reads, especially early on. And I feel like those are the moments where you can overwhelm him and land big shots on the feet. You need to be, if you're Charles Oliveira, I feel like you kind of just have to rush him. He hasn't done that in the last couple fights, and which is why I'm pretty much taking Ilia Topuria in this one, because I feel like Topuria can kind of find the shots. Charles Oliveira is just way too hittable in general. But you need the Charles Oliveira that was fighting Justin Gaethje, the Dustin Poiriers, the Michael Chandlers, where he's just going to pressure you and kind of just be super reckless and kind of bring the fight and stand and bang with these guys. I feel like Charles Oliveira recently has been a little bit too technical, in my opinion, just kind of picking his shots. And I don't know if he's being safe or anything, because he was taking a lot of damage, and it kind of showed that against Islam Makhachev, where you can't rely on him being on his back all the time. And it's going to be the same thing with Ilia Topuria. Like, if he gets dropped, like, he can't stay on his back. Ilia Topuria is not going to be scared to go into his guard and beat him up there. So he's facing another grappler in Ilia Topuria that can take advantage of those situations. But I just think in general, Ilia Topuria, he did look really good against Max Holloway, and I will say he did look a lot better against Max Holloway in moments than he did against Volkanovski. I think Volkanovski did a good job kind of staying on the outside and chopping up his leg until he got KO'd. But Holloway, I think, did really good in the first round as well. Even like in Emmett, Ilia Topuria kind of dominated Emmett, but Emmett probably had his best round early on, I will say, because he just didn't get hit as much, and Ilia Topuria wasn't unleashing like insane combinations on him. But I feel like even if Ilia Topuria is kind of game for round one, you can easily overwhelm him and kind of land those shots on him and potentially find a KO. We've seen him get head kicked multiple times. Even on the regional scene, he's gotten head kicked at like bantamweight, or I think it was 145 or whatever. I think I was wrong on it, but on what exact fight he did get head kicked in. But it was a 145-pound fight. But we've seen him get head kicked by lengthier fighters, by taller fighters. But I just need to see Charles Oliveira go out there and rush him and bring the fight and kind of stand and bang. Super dangerous with a guy like Ilia Topuria, but I feel like he kind of needs to do that. And that's why this matchup is super bad for Charles Oliveira, because I feel like he can't do I'm going to out-technique you, I'm going to out-point you on the feet. Like, that just doesn't happen with Ilia Topuria. Like, with that, you have to create space, and Ilia Topuria is going to put you on your back foot, and he's going to land his shot, and he's going to go to the body, he's going to go to your legs, he's going to go up top. Like, he's just super dangerous, has an insane amount of power, can even wrestle and grapple and submit you in any way possible. And that's the thing with this fight. Charles Oliveira just kind of has to put Ilia Topuria on his back foot, which is why he needs to go at him immediately. But I just don't think that's necessarily going to happen here. He might even try to clinch. He's been clinching quite a bit in his last couple fights too. He's been clinching, kind of just trying to pull guard on some of these guys. I feel like that's even dangerous against a guy like Ilia Topuria. So I'm going to go with Ilia Topuria here. Charles Oliveira, I feel like in multiple ways is just super dangerous for him. You kind of have to go with Ilia Topuria. I think it's going to be a brutal KO as well. But I feel like Charles Oliveira is going to have some moments, maybe like a jump knee, maybe he'll crack Ilia Topuria, but I just feel like Ilia Topuria just lands too much in combinations. It's just way too powerful for a guy like Charles Oliveira, who's way too hittable in my opinion. So that's my pick for this fight. The odds are still kind of crazy, -420, +320. I guess they just don't want money being made on Ilia Topuria, but Charles Oliveira definitely does have a chance here. It's just going to be very early on, but I feel like he's just way too hittable. I'm going to go brutal KO for Ilia Topuria. Late first, second round KO for Ilia Topuria in this